Okay, here we are, JP's Ponderings, and I get asked this all the time, and this is definitely an offskirt from the COVID issues that we had in this country, in this planet, and it is working from home. As you could imagine, being in the supermarket game, not everybody could possibly work from home, even though that they would want to, but they can't. You can't have a checkout operator working from home, or not in this point in time. You can't have our deli assistants, deli managers, all of these people. They need to be working on the shop floor, working on the cold face and dealing with customers. And as we saw over COVID, this was hectic for us, to say the least. And we were definitely put into the firing line during this period of time. But the conversation kept on coming around to working from home. Now, I do get asked this a lot. Like, what do people think about this? What do we think about this? And we made a stance, no working from home policy, unless you had a specific reason, is what we basically introduced. And we were very quick to think, well, what would we be doing? And there was no doubt the direction from the executive committee was that we are working on the shop floor, we are on the cold face. And if we can't, if everyone can't work from home, then why should anyone work from home? Did this bring up some arguments? Absolutely it did. There was lots of discussions for, and there was lots of discussions against. Now, this is when the company then realised that maybe the Drakes on the frontline team in the shops doing, all the dealings with customers on the front line are different from a head office team. Now, no one wants to think that they have big differences in their businesses like this as a us and them, or a head office and a front line. But it quickly became apparent that a lot of people in the head office wanted to work from home because they were scared they're going to get COVID and die. That was the initial narrative that was coming out. I probably can't say things like that. I'll probably get black banned by saying something about COVID. But what initially turned out was it was a cold. And when we were discussing this with our business, we were discussing what would be the advantages from working from home. As a business, there'd be savings. You wouldn't have to have office. You wouldn't have to have office space. Apparently, the employee satisfaction was that they could work from home in their own environment. And it was a thing that they could save money. They wouldn't have to spend all that money, traveling to work. And there were so many other things there, cost savings towards a business that we had. And the other big advantage, if we were going down that track, would be we'd be able to have a bigger pool of talent, because we could technically say that we were bringing people from all around Australia and they could work from home doing whatever roles they were. If you look at it from the employee side of the fence, it gave them the ability to be more flexible, reduce their commuting time so they could be more productive in everything that they're delivering for the business. There were lots of fors and lots of against for this. And we did have a couple of situations where we had to send people home because of people getting COVID and things like that. So I could see a slight advantage there, but we stuck to the narrative of not working from home. Now, we came under a bit of fire for this. Has our business been hurt by this? You could say maybe a little bit in the head office, because people did leave because they really wanted to work from home. But when we really looked at working from home, and the people I know from the people that I've spoken to that work from home are almost treating working from home like another RDO, except for they have to work somewhere along the lines there. And that meant from going for a ride in the morning and being all on their time. But I couldn't have someone honestly look me in the eye and have a child under the age of 5 years old being at that house, not at school, where they wouldn't be bugging you flat out. Now, I know what it's like in my house, and I can hand on heart say that there is no way I could possibly work from home without my kids wanting to distract me in some way or another. And I know everyone's not the same, and I totally understand that. But for me, it's clear that I could understand there were problems with working from home. The first one, and probably the biggest one that people totally underestimated, was the fact that people working from home are technically killing the culture of the business. Now, you might look at that and go, oh, well, if we're all communicating more, we're on live streams, or, we're on team meetings and Google Hangouts and whatnot, we are communicating more. I'm calling bullshit. The fact that being away and outside of an organization puts you on the outer. Now, I can say that personally for myself. We have a head office which is 5 kilometers away from this digital office, and so much stuff happens there that you're only involved with because you're in the office next door, because you're in the staff room, because you're having lunch with someone, you're walking past someone and you're finding out this information. So that culture of the business, all this information, all this collaborative work, I'm saying isn't as collaborative when you're not in that working environment. So to me, it's crucial that you have to be in that working environment. Now, when you're working from home, are you isolated from the business? Like, are you actually sitting there going, well, what do I do now? Do I call someone? Well, I don't know if it's an appropriate time to call them because I don't know if they're going to answer. Where if you're walking around an office, you can clearly see when people want to be spoken to and when they don't. So this is crucial for me these are 2 crucial things in business, but I'm going to throw in one more, and one more of those is a life-work balance, work-life balance, whatever you want to call it. It's just life, right? So people got to stop talking about this work-life balance. I don't agree with it. So for me, if I am at home and I have the boundaries of an office at home, that's fine. But where does the balance stop when you start bringing your work back home? Now, they're my 3 main points of why I don't think it's effective for a business owner to have a team working from home. Now, you can always say there's another side of the fence. So the employees, they're better work-life balance. They are more productive. They're not traveling as much. They can put all this time and energy into concentrating on the business. And I understand the fours as well. But for us as a business, we led from the top. The example came from the exec committee, and that is how we ran our business. And that's how I think how you should run every business, because if the exec team is leading the way, then everyone should look up to that as that's the direction I want to be when I'm making my decision where I want to work for a business. And did we lose people because they weren't allowed to work from home? Yes, we did. And so be it. I understand that's one of the things that has to happen. But our business has always been, if someone needs to be at home for whatever particular reason, if their kids are sick, if there's whatever reason, all they've got to do is ask. That is all you have to do, because the one thing that we realized that we were probably lacking was trust. Because we can't trust the 6,000 people that are on our team, not because we don't trust people, it's the fact that we don't know what's expected of a certain role. A lot of our positions in the business, from accounts and accounts payable, they're not driven by your percentage of how fast you're working and whatnot. It's done because that's the job that you've got done. So you could dare say we didn't have the controls in place to be able to comfortably say someone could be doing a certain role at home. And then when I look at it, I goes, well, shit, maybe that's because we weren't trusting our team as much as we should be. And that's something we definitely need to work on. So for me, the trust one's a big one, because I personally, the team that's around me, I trust them to do the role, and I really don't need to be keeping an eye on them every 5 seconds, because they are all driven individuals. They don't need me sitting there with a whip, the old school days with a whip and ball and chain on. I don't know if that's the same thing, but they don't need me to be sitting there doing that, and I don't. So it's easy to say for a small team, no problem. It's a bit harder when you start to get a couple of hundred people in your head office to all be on that same boat, because quite frankly, people are not always on the same boat. Working in a collaborative environment, and it's been proven that the generations coming up through all want to work in a collaborative environment. So as with me, working in a collaborative environment is way better for me, because I'm lucky enough to have a team around me to be able to get certain things done, where I totally understand that's not for everyone. But looking at the generations coming through from the ranks, it's gone from the old school days, like in my old man and my GM Bob, where, they'd do it all themselves to get the job done knowing it could be done, where the generations coming through actually do want to work collaboratively. And yes, you can do that on a Teams chat. I understand. But when you're in the office, and when, for instance, my job title, assistant general manager, was spending one-on-one time with Bob. And when I'm out of that one-on-one time, I'm not picking up on the things that I would get by just simply being around Bob at that time. And there's so many things that come up that aren't in your diary. And Bob will call me going, oh yeah, we got a meeting here. Drop of the hat. He expects you to be there. But for me, if I'm in that office environment, you do hear a lot more of what's going on and you are involved a lot more, which means you are more collaborative in your approach. And this is what the generations seem to want to be. They want to be far more collaborative. They're quite happy to share work, and they're not they appear to be not taking on this is all about me. It's, hey, let's be the better for the business. Now, that's a little bit different than it used to be 40 years ago, where it was all about me and the growth. But I keep coming back to whatever decisions we make, what any person in Drake's makes, is got to be for the better of the business. And I don't think we do that as well, because in that, you then start to get into the egos of the team members that are in your team, where they're trying to make themselves better than the other person. And that, to me, is when you start to have a little bit of a culture crisis or culture conflict, because it goes from being all collaborative, best for business, which is what it should be, to a bit of, I need to prove that this is my idea and I want to make sure everyone understands it's my idea. We've got to knock out that ego and understand that whatever we're doing, whether we're coding, whether we're doing accounts payable, whether we're serving customers, whether receiving deliveries on the back dock, we need to make sure that we are making sure that every decision in that process is the best for the business. And that is how you truly get exceptional growth and unbelievable culture, because you cannot teach culture. If you're working from home, you are more productive, you're communicating more. Why the hell aren't you having Zoom calls, Google Hangouts with people all the time? Now, I'm assuming I'm guessing there's going to be a select few that actually still are, but the majority of this planet wants to communicate with real people, because there is a difference between talking to someone over a Zoom call or Google Hangout, Teams call, than being in the same room with someone. And when you are in the same room with someone, that's why I say all big business decisions should be done in person. There is a feeling that you get by being in that same room, and you cannot replicate that feeling or that emotional tie that you have. You cannot replicate that by being on a Teams call. It's a feeling you get. And I'm saying, if this communication is so good, then I would be suggesting there would be far more Zoom calls and whatnot going around the planet that really aren't. Fair enough, if you've got a friend overseas you never see, totally get it. But if you don't have to, you shouldn't. And I personally believe I'd rather do all of my meetings in person, where I can speak to people, feel what's going on, see the reactions, see the impressions. And that, to me, is what I would rather do. And it's, luckily enough, that's the business decision that we have from our exec team too. I'm also one of those guys that wears an Oculus headset, has gone into meetings where you can feel and sense what people are thinking by the expressions on their face. I'm one for trying things out. I don't know if that'll ever be the place to be, other than if the planet goes to total shit that everything is done from home, maybe. And that's when we're probably going to be in a sad state of affairs anyway. Okay. Well, is this a topic you think I should be debating someone, or get an expert work from homer in for a podcast, for a chat, and listen to what their point of view is? Because I have made a pretty narrow field of someone that has a child under the age of 5 would be less that's how I am in my thoughts. But it might be totally different for the person that's single, living at home, that is totally dedicated to the business, and they are far more productive. I'm sure there's people out there. They're the exception, not the rule.